I'd like to welcome, oh, and here he comes. I'd like to welcome Szymon, I've messed it up now, Szymon to the stage. He was our Open UK Sustainability Award winner in 2022. So with that, he's going to close the show, and then I'll be up to say a few words, and we'll have a bit of a closing. But welcome. There we go.
Thank you very much. Can I use this? I can. Amazing. Can you hear me fine? Perfect. So, hi everyone again. And first of all, I hope you had a great day and enjoyed all the talks today and being able to chat to everyone and meet some new folks. I surely did. It was a very, very eventful day and yeah, much fun to be had. I do want to touch on the subjects of sustainability in tech and green software a little bit, but it was talked a lot on it today, and so I'll do it from a slightly different perspective, first sharing a bit more about myself and my engagement in tech, open source, and finally going into how I got around and got involved in open source for sustainability. So I am Szymon Duchniewicz, and I'm currently a fourth-year student at UCL studying computer science. Also part-time working at Avanade as an open technology engineer. And from interesting aspects, I do a lot of stuff in tech. I dabble a little bit in the area of game dev. Here's a picture, for example, of me at one of game jams with my brother and one of our friends winning it. So yeah, so a little bit of a flex, but yeah. Also, quite a bit into the embedded systems world, IoT, some cloud engineering, and I'm pretty crazy about windsurfing. So if we have any surfers, kite surfers, windsurfers in the room, feel free to catch me afterwards. I always love talking about it. And why am I here? I already had this in the intro, so thank you very much for mentioning it. But I was the last year's Open UK Sustainability Award winner. And I'm guessing one of the biggest reasons for that was that I co-chairing the Carbon Aware SDK project at the Green Software Foundation, which I was very happy to hear mentioned at quite a few talks today. And it's great to see, well, the knowledge of Green Software Foundation and this particular project spreading. Yeah. So how did I myself get involved in open source? It was, if I remember correctly, and I do because I did check my GitHub history, my first ever contribution was a documentation contribution, which everyone recommends you do, and I'm glad I did. It was a single line of text I've changed. I've added to the Raspberry Pi docs. It was simply me not being able to figure out why something isn't starting up, and the reason was you have to wait 5 minutes for it to eventually start working. So I said, hey, it's a small thing, but maybe let's just put it in, because I reflashed the board 5 times, and I had no idea what isn't working. I just had to wait. And how I got around actually doing it is because during I was doing a very interesting project with my brothers, an IoT system for growing vegetables in a motorized cupboard under your bed. Yeah, if it sounds weird to you, it is. You're not alone. I eventually came to the conclusion that it is pretty strange. But this was during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we had very, very weird ideas at the time. Here's how the 3D model of it looks like. Yeah, it was a time I spent a lot of time 3D printing and wanted to make it in Fusion 360, so I remade the whole thing virtually, and then on the left is a bit more messy physical recreation of it, at least part of it. Good times got me to start contributing to open source, so that's always fun. And another nice note I left here for myself. is that this tied nicely, very nicely into my degree, because I'm doing a connected systems minor, so a lot of further IoT projects I could build on the knowledge I got from this weird but fun project. Later on, I got involved in the BeagleBoard.org Foundation and the Zephyr project by tagging along onto the Google Summer of Code project. I said kind of because officially they had no more spaces, but they still wanted to do the project with me, so I still did it with them. So yeah, with them, but not really. And my task was to add support to a via terminal board, which is a small embedded systems device by Seed Studio. It actually is now open sourced, from what I know, which is very cool. At least part of it is. And the idea is it could be used for like a debugging platform for new Beagle Connect Freedoms, new boards released by BeagleBoard. BeagleBoard is an open hardware foundation. They did like the pre-Raspberry Pi, Raspberry Pis, and the Raspberry Pis that actually went to space. So if you want to know which ones did, yeah, these guys did. So I recommend you check them out. It was actually, I didn't manage to complete this project. I spent a lot of hours reading the documentation of Zephyr and digging into it, because I was a complete newbie at the time. And I did manage to get minimal support for the board working. And I did open a pull request with my changes, but I never managed to get it to a standard where it could get merged in. So as you can see there's a red closed, not a purple one. But I'll get back to it. In hindsight, the task was very, very, very hard for me as a first-time Zephyr user. But I believe that if I could just sit down and had a bit more motivation at the time, I may have been able to push it to completion. Then I joined Avanade, and so that was 2020, a year and a half ago, so some time now. And Chris Lloyd-Jones, who just had the panel here, he introduced me to Green Software Foundation and nominated me to be the co-chair of the Carbon-Aware SDK project, which I eventually became. And it was a really great thing. For those of you who are not aware, Carbon-Aware SDK is a tooling that, as the name suggests, helps you build carbon-aware applications in the cloud. So carbon awareness was introduced beforehand today, I think a few times. But as a recap, it just allows you to do time shifts of your workloads in the cloud, of computing jobs, or location shifts, or build applications that can scale out depending on the cleanness of the grid. And during the year of 2022, I increasingly got more and more involved in GSF, so the Green Software Foundation, and I really enjoyed the open source community. So as mentioned before, I had some bumps along the road because I did struggle with the previous project, but now so nothing's ever really perfect, but you just have to persevere and push on if you want to achieve something in it, right? I did help around with organizing Carbon Hack 2022 as well, which was around the Carbon-Aware SDK tool. And for those of you who are not aware, we probably are doing another one this year or maybe early next year, but look out for the Green Software Foundation comms. And I was around for the 1.0 and 1.1 release. The tool is getting more and more adoption from different companies, so it's great to see it being used in production and having some impact on the world. And afterwards, for some of my achievements in tech for sustainability for tech, rather open tech for sustainability, I won the Open UK Sustainability Award. Here's a picture of us from Avanade, the House of Lords in London, and then me receiving the actual award because it didn't arrive at the time for the awards. It got it didn't go through the security for some reason. House of Lords didn't want to let it through. So I received it later on at the State of OpenCon conference in London. And here's me smiling after just receiving it. So this was a really nice personal achievement and really good personal reassurance for me that something that I am doing has an external visibility as well as has some external impact. And what else kind of happened afterwards? What did it lead me to do afterwards? Well, the effect was that it gave me the confirmation that I am doing this important thing, and I can go on and share some of the knowledge. Like, I actually have some knowledge that I can share with people, so that was, a nice thing to learn being an undergraduate student. And I went on to a few conferences sharing mostly my green software knowledge and the knowledge of the Carbonara SDK. The Open Source Summit is the only lie here, because this happened before the award ceremony. But the rest is, before I got the awards, but the rest is afterwards. So State of OpenCon is the event I talked with Dan Benetta on green software as well. LF Energy Summit, that happened as well this year, also on green software. And then on the Embedded Open Source Summit, I did a talk on the Zephyr project. So that's how I got back into the Zephyr project, which I'll briefly mention later as well. And I did do a more targeted green software talk there. Yeah, but it was cool because people wanted to listen to it. People were very engaged afterwards. It was just great seeing how people who haven't heard about green software before and sustainability for tech, even at the embedded level, which I was really, really happy about, that people really wanted to learn how embedded systems can be made. Like, how can they, as embedded developers, do more in the sustainability space? And what next? So, am I over time, or no? Okay, because I was looking here and not here. Basically, well, yeah, what's next? So my next steps, I'm currently in my 4th year, as I said, of my undergraduate degree. So this year, hopefully graduate and then continue contributing to open source. My master's final year project, which I'll be working on now, and I'm in the process of figuring out more details of it, will be around the Rust language efficiency in Linux applications. So, in my opinion, tied into sustainability as well, because we're looking at the efficiency of a very, very trendy language at the moment with huge potential. I think, yeah, we had a few mentions beforehand of how impactful it will be, and it already is. So I'm very happy to be exploring more of it. If anyone has some pointers or wants to chat about it, just grab me afterwards. I'll be happy to. But again, I'm at the very beginning stages of it, so bear with me. My knowledge may be limited. I further want to contribute to the Zephyr project. So after not being able to complete the previous board support edition, I now have a I completed a different project with my brother where we had to add support for that particular. Zephyr project is a real-time operating system. I should have explained this as well. But we have added support for it, and now I'm in the process of getting this upstreamed, and fingers crossed it will eventually come in. The process is a bit harder. The standard of the code that has to come in is pretty high, and the commit history as well is checking my Git knowledge, but we're getting there. And continue contributing to the Green Software Foundation. Yeah, I did have a few slides about green software as well, and why should we care about it, but I think it has been pretty solidly covered. So I don't think I need to convince any of you anymore why you should care about the greenness of our software. But just in case, like some of the stats mentioned before, that currently the software emissions are equivalent to rail air and shipping combined. So that's pretty important. And software legislation is increasing very strongly in the past few years and continues to do so. So I think if we want to stay on top and be ahead of the, not let legislation bite us, but work with it, then we have to think about the sustainability of it. You can learn more about some of these stats on the state of .greensoftware.org report, which was released this year. I should have left a bigger URL in case you cannot catch it. Grab me later, I'll point you to it. And finally, I want to finish off with a quote and a call to action I stole from, actually borrowed from Mark G. Young, the CEO of What Carbon. I saw that he finished off with this during his presentation at LF Energy Summit. So join the clean energy revolution. And because this is not just about energy, software also has an impact on the energy. So if we can together work to decarbonize our software, and yeah, then we will be able to achieve the goal of avoiding any catastrophes, hopefully, right? Yeah, so thank you all for your patience and attending this event and listening to me today. So, and hopefully see you all online, see you all on GitHub and on next events. Thank you.